Okay, I'm going to show you an easy way to download data from the Federal Reserve now that Excel has gotten a little bit more powerful. I recorded a video similar to this a couple of years back, but I'm going to be using Excel for Office 365. This also works very similarly for other Excels. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to download some data from the Federal Reserve on yield curve information. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to search for, let's say, a 90-day T-bill rates. If you do a search for 90-day T-bill rates, you want to look for the federal www.treasury.gov. Here it says daily Treasury T-bill rates. So we'll go ahead and click on there. And I want to go ahead and get yield curve rates because I want to construct a yield curve. So I'll go ahead and click this down arrow. And I'll click daily Treasury yield curve rates and I'll go. And if you did it correctly, it should say 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, all the way to 30 years. So 1 month to 1 year is bills, and then from 1 year to 10 years is notes, and then out here they call them bonds. So depending on the maturity, and this shows a different yearly, like if this is 2 year, this is a yearly yield, and this is like the equivalent yearly percent, and this is in percent. But let's go ahead, I want to look at historical T-bill, or historical rates, so I can construct yield curves. So let me go ahead and I'm going to click here, I'm going to go all the way down, I'm going to go all, and I'm going to go. And you can see it's working down here. It's going to take it a little bit, and you got to let it think for a while. It's going to go get a lot of data for us. You get all it's got history on. And when it finally does it, and it goes all the way back to January 2nd of 1990, and if you scroll down, it's got a lot of different. I'm not going to scroll all the way down because it's still populating my screen, but I'm not going to get it that now. I could do it the old school way. I could highlight. What I'm going to show you next, if that doesn't work, this is an old school way. You can just highlight this all the way down to the bottom. That'd take a while, right? Now I'm going to show you what Excel can do. So let me go ahead and click on XML. And so now this gives me, and I don't really care about this data down here. I just want this URL right here. It says it's a feed from the data.treasury.gov. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to copy that URL, and I'm going to go to Excel. Once I go to Excel, I'm going to go to something called PowerPivot. Now, you might not have PowerPivot. But you're going to have to search around depending on your version of Excel. Mine actually has PowerPivot up here. Also, so I'm going to go ahead and use PowerPivot. But you want to search around until you see this little manage box. Okay, it might not be under PowerPivot. It might be somewhere else. I'm looking if there's somewhere else in here. Data. Now this is the only place it has. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this manage. So I'm going to data model and I go to manage. And I want to go here to from other sources. So I'm going to get external data from other sources. And I'm going to go ahead and scroll down, and I'm going to look for other feeds. And I'm going to double click on that. And right here I'm going to paste in that URL I just copied. Okay, and then I'm going to go next and finish. And it's going to import. And it says success, and I'm going to go ahead and close this. And it's imported all that yield curve data into a database for us. Now, one thing at this point, we want to double check things. So if I check here, 1 month and 2 months didn't have anything back here, but it also imported everything as text. And this it imported like really, I don't want that many decimal places. So we want to make sure all these things all have to have decimal. See how this one says decimal? If I click on this column, it says text. So one thing I could do, I could highlight across all my columns, and all I have to do is make sure I get into these columns. And I'm going to go data type decimal number. And now if I click here, now it's these two are decimal instead of text. I'm going to highlight across again, and I'm going to go here to get the, let's take it out like 4 decimals. We don't need all those decimals. Well, actually, let's just take it out 2 decimals, because that's all the Fed has it to. All right, and this date, I don't want, don't want this long form of date. Maybe I could just do the regular form of date. Make that look a bit nicer. So now we've exported all this and or imported this data from the Fed, and this is a live feed. So tomorrow I could just go here and refresh, and it will update it again. So that's what's nice about this. You could update it every day. It'll remember. It'll also remember. Oh, what did I do here? I messed up a little bit, I think. Let me go back to the data model. I wasn't paying attention here. Hold on. Okay, I had a problem. I had to pause it, but really I just paused it because the refresh took a while. There wasn't a problem. So when I hit that refresh, it just took a while. And once I waited, then it came back. So let's keep going. So now what I want to do, so I have all these in, and you notice like 1 month and 2 months is blank here. 20 years is blank. That's because if you scroll down, they're not selling them at that time, but different times they're selling them. And again, I just want to remind you, these are different terms to maturity. So so a 5-year note back in September of 1991 was 6.92% per year. That was the yield to maturity. Okay, and a 3-year note. So it kind of makes sense here. As maturity increases, the price tends to go up, and that normally, if you would create a yield curve, that would show, that would not be an inverted yield curve. That's kind of what economists like to see. They like to see the price go up as the term to maturity goes out. So anyway, this is kind of nice because it goes all the way back to 1991, and I don't know why it's missing days. That's kind of strange, but well, I think it might be doing it monthly. I think that's what it did. It did it monthly, but let's just go ahead and keep going here. So now what I want to do is I want to make something called a pivot table. So if I go right here, I click pivot table, and I just go ahead and take the default, and and one thing about pivot tables are very powerful. So if I click out here, the pivot table goes away, but if I click in here, a contextual menu comes up here. It says pivot table tools, and then this comes up over here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take the date and drag it down here. Now see, now it's showing the dates. Back here it wasn't showing, back in the other sheet it wasn't showing, but I can see it here. This is acting a little bit squirrely. I think it has something to do with my video recording. But on yours, if you go to sheet 1, it'll show some stuff. It'll show our original sheet, but it opened up a new pivot table. So now we have all the dates, and so what I want to do, I want to go here under pivot table. I want to go under analyze, and I'll go ahead and group it. So I'm going to go under group field. I want to group it by months, and then I'm going to hold down the control key. On your keyboard it should say CTRL. It's on the lower left hand corner. Sometimes it's on the right. So I'm going to hold that down, and I pick years also, and then I'm going to go OK. And it'll think for a while, and now it has it in months instead of every day. So we want to summarize it. We don't want to have all those rows of data. So then what I'm going to do is I'll just start pulling some of these down into values. And we're going to be summarizing by, I'll just pull like that many down. And you can see like these 2 months they weren't selling it, but these 3 months they're selling it. But that doesn't look right. And the reason it doesn't look right is because it's summing. So all the data in January, it's adding them together. So we want to go down here, and we're going to change this to average, because we want the average in every one of these. Now unfortunately, Excel, you have to do it for every one. Okay. And value field, whoop, I didn't want to do that. It said I did remove field by mistake, so I'm going to drag it back down. And I'm going to change all these to average. And you can see now we're getting averages. Okay, so now it's showing the average for each month. So now instead of having it daily, now I can average it. So that's the beauty of Excel, and especially the beauty of pivot tables. You know, there might be 21 days in January, you know, different days and different number of business days. So if I did this by hand, I'd have to take all these numbers in January, add them together, and divide it by 21 days. This one I might have to add together and divide it by 19 days, because it depends. So this does it all. It does a lot of work automatically. So pivot table is very powerful because it's visual. You just drag and drop and it does things. So what I want to do, I want to drag the rest of these down. And I'm going to be kind of mindful. I want to keep them in the same order. So I'm going to drag that down to the bottom, each one of these. And go drag it to the bottom. Drag it to the bottom. And the reason I want to drag it to the bottom, because I want them in the same order here. Now if you do drag it to the wrong place, maybe you drag it here, then all of a sudden, you know, if I drag the 7 year up to here, all of a sudden 7 years out of order, right? Well, you can drag it back down. And now it's back where it belongs. So don't get, but it's better just to kind of drag them to the bottom as you go, and then you don't have to rearrange. Now I have them all in here, and you can see 30, 20, 10, 7, 5, but they say some, so I got to change all those too. Unfortunately, like I said, you have to do them individually. I haven't found a way to do them all at once. If one of the viewers has a way, I would appreciate you let me know. Just leave a comment on the video how to do them all at once. But I have not found a way to do these in bulk. I guess I might try to write a program to do it or something. But you just have, you know, I wish I could default to a certain thing. I think I even researched it at one time, and I couldn't find anything. I Googled it, and I couldn't find a way to do it. Okay, and finally we're going to do a 30-year. So now we have all of these and the average by month. So now what we can do something really cool. We can again, we're back up here in this contextual menu, and I'm going to go add a pivot chart, and I want a line chart. And then if I go OK, you can see that all of these, so now it's pretty cool. It's graphed all of the maturities and what the yield is over time. The yield is maturity. So you can see back in the 1990, 1991, you had a really high, you could get a real high return. And then all of a sudden it would drop. It dropped and it went really low, and then it went up, and then it kind of had a rough time. Then it dropped real shortly, and here it dropped really shortly. And in actuality, this is where we had some, you know, this is back when we had a recession. This drop was a recession. This is about when President Obama came into office in 2008, I believe it was. And we had a recession. And you can see that this is pretty cool because, like in normal economic periods, as you go longer in maturity, like you can see this one here, you have to look for, some of them are missing. Like you can see like the 20-year might be missing in some. Like here it breaks. You can see a little break. So if they weren't selling, the Fed wasn't actually selling that security during that time, it's not going to show up. So you got to be careful when you're looking at the graph. But you can see in normal economic times, as the maturity goes up, you make more money. Okay, you can get a higher yield. So so that may have to do with, you know, one theory, it has to do with maturity risk, right? So there's a maturity risk premium. So anyway, at this point, if you're doing this for extra credit in my class, save this file, and you can, for my finance 3503 class, save this file, and you can upload this for extra credit. Now remember, if when we're back at this website at the treasury.gov, let me go hit the back arrow. If you have problems using that XML and you're doing this for my class, you can highlight this manually and then copy and paste it onto your Excel spreadsheet. But the problem is after you do that, before you do anything, you want to go ahead and search for NA and replace the NA with a blank. That way, see how it does all these NAs? You just want to put a blank before you do anything. But you could proceed from that and do the same thing. Okay, so let's go back to here. So that's all. So that's very interesting. But you can see right here, they're all mixed. It's actually inverted. Okay. So what I want to do, let's go ahead and do something. We'll go ahead and highlight all of these. I'm going to go back and highlight all of these. Before I highlight them, I want to change the way this looks a little bit. And let me go to, I'm going to go back to design. And I'm going to go to report layout. I want to say show in tabular form. And then finally I want to go to report, and I want to go repeat all items. So now I say 19. So now it has 1990 and January on each one. That just looks better for when for what I'm going to do here. And now what I want to do is highlight across. So I see an extra column here. I think I'm going to pull this out. We don't really need that. I didn't, for some reason I got an extra date down there. I just want these two dates. So I'm going to highlight across. And then I'm going to use a shortcut key. I'm going to hold down the shift key, S-H-I-F-T. I'm going to tap the end key once, E-N-D, and then I'm going to tap the down arrow once. And it gets all that. And I'm going to hit the down arrow. I'm going to hit the up arrow once because I don't want that last row, because that's a grand total. And then I'm going to right click and go copy, and I'm going to do a new worksheet. And now what I want you to do, when you right click here, be very careful, don't just paste it, you want to paste it as values. If you paste it as values, it disconnects it from that pivot table, and because we don't want the pivot table anymore at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and click here, and it puts this data back in. I'm gonna go across and double click to kind of oh, you know what, maybe I'm going to scrunch this in. Let me just scrunch it in a little bit so I can see everything. Maybe I don't want to double click. Okay, so this is 1 month. You can read it. If you go up here, you can read it. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year. So anyway, so this is all the data we just saw back here. But what I did, like I said, I pasted it as values. Okay, and then so now it's not hooked up. It's just the numbers in here. So what I want to do, I want to construct the yield curves, and I'm going to show you something really cool. It's called sparklines. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to insert, and there's an area called sparklines, and I'm going to do a line, and I want to do it based off of these values, not the dates, but just these values right here. And then I go okay, and there's a little tiny yield curve, and that's good enough you can see it. And then I'm just going to copy that all the way down. So let's scroll back up to the top again, and you can see that most of the time as the maturity goes out, it goes higher than the yearly yield goes up. But sometimes, as you look, if we scroll down, like look right here, back in 2000, it's an inverted yield curve. Okay, so that's very interesting. So let's go back and we can look. Let's go back and look at our sheet 2, and I'm going to scroll over so I can get this graph. Around 2000, you can see, well, right here it is inverted, right? The yellow is more money. A 6 month is higher than some of the longer term, which you know. So some economists say when you see a inverted yield curve, you're in for like troubled economic times, right? Like these are recessions. Okay, so this is a recession right here, where everything dropped, and it's all, and some of you may be too young, but this was a pretty bad recession. We just started climbing out, and so that's basically how you do yield curves. It's kind of nice with these sparklines. You can do all these yield curves all at once. And so let's scroll down to recently. you may have seen recently on the news, some people were talking about, on business news, about how the curve is getting. So you can go back at, back to March through August 2019, we're getting that inverted yield curve. So that, that bothers a lot of financial people and economists when they see that. They get excited. They get excited about that inverted yield curve. So anyway, hopefully that helps. I showed you a lot. I showed you how to do pivot tables, how to hook up to a website and get the data feed. So I'm going to go back to PowerPivot. If I want to get that back up again, I got to click that and it shows it. Okay. So I actually have two separate sheets now. I have PowerPivot, but then I have the other ones on another sheet. So don't let that confuse you too much. So what's nice about this, the way I did it, like I told you, a week from now I can refresh this, and then I can go back to this, and it'll add, or 2 months from now, maybe in March, it would automatically add everything down on the bottom for us. Now you'd have to like copy this down, right? But everything else, well, you know what, you'd have to copy this sheet, because this isn't going to be updated. Remember, I disconnected that from the pivot table. But this would all update, okay? So anyway, hopefully that helps. So again, if you're doing my finance class, you can go ahead and upload this again for the second part of the extra credit, and you would have completed both extra credits. So I know that was a little bit long of a video, but I was trying to do quite a bit of stuff. Hopefully it was interesting to you, and thank you very much.